Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Wow, PSG absolutely smoked by Chelsea. Sorry, adjusting my microphone as we go here. Thoroughly deserving of that win, by the way. Guys, we'll talk all about this in a second, but just a reminder, I will be leaving for a few weeks once the baby is born, so I'll have one more video for you guys, which should be coming out on Tuesday, okay? No promises, but I'm pretty sure we'll get it out on Tuesday, right, Alex? Singing the national anthem of the host country was an interesting move. Can't remember that happening in any other major football final, but okay. Very, very American with the military or Navy or Air Force or whatever people, maybe all of the above. Jets flying overhead. It was a yeehaw moment. Chelsea started this match incredibly well, man, and it stayed that way. Like I said, I really like the direction they are heading in under Maresca. We've seen some great signs from them in this tournament as things have progressed, of course. That Flamengo performance aside, most things have been good from Chelsea, but they did exactly as you would have expected, and they needed to do, have intensity to match or even more intensity than PSG, keep the ball away from them, and they did so for the first 10 minutes. Cole Palmer coming close from a slick Chelsea attack that saw João Pedro flick it back to Palmer. I thought that was in. A move that was pretty deserving of a goal, to be honest. But yes, after 10 minutes, PSG changed the tempo of the game. The rapid pace of Chelsea's approach needed to be regulated. It needed to be tempered. So PSG slowed the game down completely and began dominating the ball far more. They had an incredible chance in the 16th minute when Fabian Ruiz played a curling ball to the back post for Doué, and he decided to try to square it instead of shoot at goal, which Cucurella read perfectly. Well done by him. Doué, no doubt regretting not taking an attempt at. He had one a few minutes later that Sanchez was able to get down quickly for. He should have just buried that first one though. But I say he would regret it because Chelsea, despite not having much of the ball, also looked very dangerous on the counter and were awarded for their positive play when Malo Gusto was played in behind with a long ball. He was actually slightly offside, but given Nuno Mendes tried to play the ball, keyword being tried, and made an absolute mess of it, he was onside. Gusto had a shot blocked, then passed back to Palmer, who just rolled it into the far post past Donnarumma. Just the second goal they had conceded of the tournament. Now we got to see what they were made of and how Chelsea can hold their nerve when they had a lead and when they aren't the favorite with the lead. A different dynamic for each side to contend with, right? But it took no time for Chelsea to double their lead, 0. And it was from the same kind of ball, that diagonal ball down the flank. This time Palmer was on it and he scored almost the same goal, really, just a calm tiptoeing into the middle, rolling it into the corner, 2-0. What now was the question. Good final. The last thing we wanted to see was PSG run away with it early again. We wanted a final. Finals often suck. This one didn't. You could see that clearly. Enzo Maresca had drilled them to look for the quick ball over the fullbacks or in the space that they typically occupy as they push so far up the pitch, right? Over and over they looked for that. And they certainly could have had another goal just before the half where Pedro Neto got it completely wrong, but they still got another goal, this time with Palmer getting the assist. A beautifully weighted ball through the back line and João Pedro with a chip past Donnarumma. Great stuff. The Uno reverse card played on PSG as they were 3-0 down at halftime. And again, João Pedro just so slick with it. Classy finish again from him. Watch out for Chelsea's John Peter in the coming season. John Peter is an absolute killer. You could really see the disconnect between Nuno Mendes and Beraldo, where Pacho typically works so well with him and helps to cover him and the entire back line, really. When he goes forward, that was a constant weakness for PSG, and the outball was always there for them. Always. Just hoof it forward, down one of the flanks. The best player to watch on the pitch was probably Cole Palmer, right? But I gotta give love to the way that Moises Caicedo just had that entire midfield locked down, protecting the ball, launching the attacks. What a midfielder. I have another note for him later, though. One of the biggest disappointments for PSG was Dembele, who simply looked disconnected from all of his teammates. So many errant passes that only found Chelsea players or just went out of bounds. Really bad for his Ballon d'Or bid. Anyway, Chelsea were ruthless in that first half. Only had about 125 passes total, way less possession, 3 shots on target, 3 goals from 6 attempts. You know, you gotta like those figures if you're Maresca. Sanchez did have to make 2 pretty big saves in that first half, and he made 2 great saves early in the second half as well. The second one, especially on Dembele, was fantastic, just getting down quick with that reaction save. Good showing from him in the final, who isn't always my favorite keeper, but you have to give credit where it's due, right? That's what we do around here. We give credit where it's due. It really looked like PSG didn't have the legs anymore. Not only did Maresca get this right tactically by completely taking PSG's front line out of this by sitting deep and hitting them on the counter in that second half and in the first, I should say, but PSG just didn't have the legs and the outball was covered for them. Remember what I was saying in the preview about how Bayern gave them the blueprint, pressing high early and always having someone on their winger so they didn't have an outball. They did that. They also added in the diagonal balls into the flanks where the fullbacks didn't have the legs to get back on time. Like, it was comical how often they had a decent chance just by hoofing it down the flank for Palmer or anyone else to run onto. Delap, later in the match, who in fact had 2 great chances that were saved by Donnarumma. What a miss Pacho was. Lucas Beraldo, quite poor. I had seen him play before, obviously, so I thought his level was a little higher, but he looked way off the pace for PSG in comparison to Pacho, who is so dominant in the backline, right? I don't think Palmer scores at least one of those goals. The second one probably, where he had an entire acre of room to shoot at goal if Pacho's out there. And as things wound down, PSG never really looked like scoring. For example, Gonzalo Ramos misplaying it from a couple yards out, couldn't even get a consolation goal, to which my wife actually said that he has butter boots. Never actually heard someone say that. So I'm going to steal that from her. João Neves getting the red card was pretty hilarious also. I mean, come on. That was funny. Cucurella has the Casemiro plot armor, man. Blessed by Casemiro. I gotta say, I respect him as a player. If he was on my team, I would love him. But watch this guy closely. He's nasty. He goes through players with intent to hurt them and gets away with it over and over and over. Watch him closely, I'm telling you. He provokes people as well. Then he goes down screaming like his bones were snapped at the smallest touch. I recognize his game. I recognize his great ability with the dark arts, but I do not respect how he tries to hurt people as he goes through tackles recklessly. There was a moment against Palmeiras where he followed through with his knee into the player's thigh when he didn't have to at all. Just excessive and unnecessary. He stepped on a Fluminense player on purpose, but played it cool and didn't get caught. And he went through hard on Doué. Excessive again, no card. I'll be watching him very closely this season. Bit of a nasty guy, which I hadn't really realized until this tournament. Caicedo as well, man. This is that note I have on him. To a point at least. He's not as annoying and nasty with it as Cucurella, but he's pretty reckless in the tackle as well. So many fouls, only gets 1 yellow. That foul on Mayulu at the end, he should have joined Jon Snow in the tunnel to watch the end of the match. Guy was protected by the football angels. This man had the referee seduced out there with the fouls he had. This guy had 5 fouls in this game and all he got a yellow for? Arguing. Very funny. Absolutely blessed by Casemiro, maybe more so than Cucurella. By the way, just in case anyone doesn't get what I'm saying, it became an ongoing joke in Spain with how many fouls, some of them nasty, that Casemiro would get without getting too many yellows or reds, to be honest. But the worst look of all, not for the extent of it, but the optics of it, Luis Enrique trying to push or grab the neck of John Peter at the end of the match. John Peter went down with a dive, even though the game was over. You don't need to do that, John Peter, but Enrique should never, ever be doing that. The PSG players in general, I just watched it, so I haven't seen too many replays or dissections of what happened, but they did not leave the pitch classily. Embarrassing sore losers with how they reacted. Chelsea, thoroughly deserving of that final win with how they played. Completely undid PSG like few teams have this season, well, at least in the latter half of the season, and not just undid their defense, but shut them out as well. That was the impressive aspect that people probably won't focus on as much. Yes, Sanchez made a few good saves, about 4 really good ones out of the 6 he made, but Chelsea's defending was great. And that back line of Gusto, Chalobah, Colwill, and Cucurella is going to be something next season. Amazing to think that at one point Chelsea saw Chalobah as surplus to requirements, but some great humility from Chelsea/Enzo Maresca to realize that they had made a mistake and to admit it by calling him back. And great love and understanding from Chalobah to not hold it against them and to come back to Chelsea and look at what he's doing now, right? So, Chelsea win the inaugural revamped Club World Cup. Congratulations to all the Chelsea supporters out there. As I said in the last video, I really like the direction that they're heading in now. It feels like they finally have things sorted as far as an 11 goes. Like, this Chelsea team with a deadly finisher like John Peter leading them, and how John Peter has lifted Palmer as well towards the end of this tournament. Neto was good early in the tournament, fell off a bit, so I can understand in some ways why they want another left winger. But regardless, the attack is sorted. Enzo and Caicedo is a top midfield duo, and that back line, as I spoke of, is really, really good. And hey, to win 2 trophies in your first year under Maresca, that can only build confidence, right? Build a winning mentality. Good things to come, especially if they spend another Billy. I'm joking, but the finances help, right? Just as they help PSG to get to this point. Guys, thank you for watching along the Club World Cup with me. That brings my coverage to an end here. And this is the penultimate video before I go on paternity leave. Unpaid paternity leave. This company sucks. I will be leaving after the next video. I have one more video for you, so I hope to see you there, but if I don't, I love you, and I'll see you in a few weeks, okay? I'll be back for the next season one way or another. Don't worry, I'm already terrible at sleeping, so I should be fine. All right, guys? Be well.